All right, we are live again. I missed last night, Monday, but I'm back on a Tuesday to stream. Hopefully everything is working properly. I actually have the camera the right way this time, which is a good start. Just going to jump right into it. Hopefully some people join, but if not, I know people are watching after the fact, which is appreciated. Perfect Biscuits Live. Come on, PB Live. And I titled today The Mechanics of Penmanship, because I've been thinking a lot about the mechanics of penmanship lately. Really like how the muscles work, or which parts of the arms do what when you're writing. And how different parts of the arm and hand and fingers move for different types of strokes and different letters. And it's really kind of got me to realize, like, really specifically why certain letters are so difficult, certain forms are so difficult. So I'm going to talk about that. I also want to talk about a little project I've been working on, I'll actually start with that first. Show you. Oops. Just going to put some lines down on this paper real quick. Won't take long. These are just half-inch lines, just for warming up. Give me something straight. I've also been rereading some of the old penmanship books, which I call them like the source material. I think I might start calling them the scriptures of penmanship. I'm talking about Modern Business Penmanship by Mills. I'm talking about the Arm Movement Method of Rapid Writing by Zahner. Talking about the Champion Method. These are the best texts we have from that era that talk about business penmanship. And I've been rereading them. It's funny because every time I read them, I pick up something new that I just missed before about grip or posture or movement or even just practice. I always pick up something new, which is weird. So I've read them so many times. But here's what I've been working on lately. And this is a long-term goal for sure. And it's something I would like to do eventually, which is do a reproduction of this piece, which you may recognize. Might be hard to see the writing on it. It's called Milestones on the Penmanship Highway. It was done by J.J. Bailey, and it was published in the Business Educator in 1929. And you can look this up. I encourage you to look up Business Educator Volume 35 on archive.org. I think this is on page 19. This is the first page. He did 10 pages, and they printed them, I think, in 10 straight issues, one page each issue. And the first page is this one, and it's just this beautiful passage about penmanship and becoming a good penman, basically, and what it takes to become a good penman. But it's just one of those hallmark business penmanship achievements. There's so many things that are difficult about this piece. Just the length of it, the spacing on it is so tight. And I've just been thinking about what it would take to reproduce something like this. You know, how the quality of the penmanship that I would need to achieve to get there, to actually do something that would, you know, I'm not gonna recreate this and with shitty penmanship. It's just not my style. So it's oh, hey guys, Micah, Diego, Andre, what's up? Yeah, ergonomics. We're talking ergonomics. But yeah, you need to have really good penmanship to even, like, I think to do it, to kind of like pay homage to this piece, it'd be kind of disrespectful, I would say, to do it with bad penmanship, or to do it in a style that was different than the way J.J. Bailey did it. So long term, I'm thinking, like, all right, someday I would like to create a really accurate reproduction of this piece, and then I'd also, after I do that, I'd like to kind of create my own take on it. I think that would be interesting after I kind of feel like I've done the historical specimen, given its due. I'd like to kind of do my own take on it, which would still be in business penmanship. Wouldn't be that crazy, but I've been copying this in pencil. I did a few takes of it just to kind of see like how much do I, like how far am I from going. So this was the first take, and I put some red marks on it. Not terrible, but it's not anywhere close to what Bailey did. So I did this take first, and then I did another one in ink on white paper, so it might show a little better. Definitely learned a lot doing these 2 takes. It's just kind of learning the style that he was using. There's so many different kind of quirks in his writing that he chose for this piece. And I'll go back to the source material here. This is a different copy of it, so there's I've been digging into where this piece came from and how I could possibly figure out how he actually wrote the original, and where I can't figure out who actually scanned this, and I have reason to believe that this came from a different place than this one, or I forget where I just did with it. So let me back up. This is a printout of the Business Educator. This came from the Business Educator, and that's on archive.org. So I printed this out. This came from iempath.com. This is a scan they have of the page. I put the numbers in on the side, and I drew some lines on it. But it's a little different. It's different than it's definitely the same original piece, but the scan is different. So there's like, specifically, you're not gonna be able to see it, so maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. But on this lapse here, there's clearly, you can see that there's this E loop that extends out, and on the lapse here, if I can find it, lapse. No, that's these. Jesus, where is it? There it is, lapse right here. This E doesn't extend out. So I wondered if this was scanned and then like doctored to bold to make the lines bolder, and then that little E showed up. I don't know. But yeah, my mission right now is to figure out what size this original one was done at, which I've kind of gotten a clue today. I don't know how I'm going to figure that out, but I would like to figure out how this was done, at what size it was done, because if you print this out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet paper, the X height is like 1.5 to 2 32nds of an inch, which is 2 32nds is 1/16. Pretty small writing, and I think it's even less than that. So that's super small, really hard to write well when you're writing that small. So I doubt he wrote it at that original size. I bet he did it at a bigger size, and then it was engraved and reproduced at a smaller size for the Business Educator. And I got a clue about what size he might have done it at today when I found this letter by J.J. Bailey. Different letter, but same author. So it stands to reason that maybe if he did something at this size, this is a letter he wrote that was for reproduction. I'm not sure where it was reproduced, but I can just tell that by what he wrote, it was going to be printed somewhere. And I also know it's going to be printed because there's copy and paste things in here. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 7 different places where he rewrote things and then cut it out and pasted on top of this piece. So this was obviously going to an engraver to be engraved, and he wanted it to be absolutely perfect. Michael Soul says 1/16 is a standard X height. It is, but I want to be for sure, and I doubt when he did this, he did it at 1/16, and I have my reasons why, and we'll get into that. So, first of all, I talked about the cut and paste that he did. He only did like 8 on this whole piece. So that means that there's just lines and lines of very near perfection, which is just amazing. J.J. Bailey was the best of the best when it came to business writing. It's funny because Edward Mills, E.C. Mills, was like maybe the only one that was better than him, and he was also from Canada. So 2 Canadians. So what I did is that you probably can't see on this page. This is from myempath.com as well, or .org, whatever it is. If you look up J.J. Bailey's name on their artwork page, you'll find 2 pieces. One is the one I just showed you, the Milestones piece, and then the other one is this letter that was reproduced. And that was written for reproduction, sorry. And if you look at it, it's a very high quality scan. And you can see all the paste up marks that I talked about. You can also see the lines that are on this paper. So there's vertical lines running. There's vertical lines running here, here, and then there's like a line here, and then there's smaller ones that go across the page. So I got out Photoshop, and that really blows it out when I go like that. I got Photoshop out, and I figured out that these vertical lines are 1/5 the size of this wider space here. So there's kind of like this indentation space in the front of on the left side of the paper, and then that's 5x the width of these ones going across the page. And I basically used that ratio to figure out what the x height would be. So if I said, all right, if this is 5x and these ones are x, then maybe this was an inch. Maybe this was 1.5 inches. Maybe it was 2 inches. And then I could also measure these horizontal lines, which you probably can't see. I don't want to get too into it because it's hard to demonstrate what I did, and I wasn't really prepared to demonstrate it. But basically, I did a bunch of algebra and figured out that this was most likely done on a piece of paper. So there's actually 2 pieces of paper pasted together. You can clearly see from the scan that this page ends here, and then there's another page that's pasted or taped to it. So this is actually 2 pieces of paper, and what I believe is that each piece of paper was about 9 inches was about 12 to 13 inches wide, and around 9 to 10 inches tall. And then the X height was 1/8 of an inch. So that was I think it's mystery solved as far as this piece goes. Now, that doesn't say what he did this Milestones piece at, but I would guess that if he did this at 1/8 of an inch X height, and he was clearly trying to do it to look as best as it possibly could be, he probably did this same thing at 1/8 of an inch as well, because this was for the business educator as well, and he wanted this to look really great. I think it was a piece that he cared about a lot. So I'm guessing this was done at 1/8 of an inch as well. And I think it probably had to be done at that big of an X height because of how close he put the lines together. So there's no spacing between these lines, which is really amazing. I think that's one of the most difficult parts of this piece, is that it was done with no spacing. It's just crazy. So that means that all of his descenders and ascenders had to miss each other. And I think they pretty much do everywhere. There's one spot here that I see right now where they collide a little bit. But it's really amazing how well he got this to lay out. And I'm guessing similar to the other letter that I showed you, he did do some paste ups here to fix things. So Andre's asking, have you noticed personal variations or minor quirks in various samples of business writing? Absolutely. So if you look at any of just the books, you don't have to go to like the samples and things. Each author has their own style. So I'll point some out here. It's too far away, so I don't even want to get into it. I need to figure out a way, maybe Diego can help me, where I could share my screen on here. I know you can do it. I'm afraid my computer will melt down. But if I try to do it right now. But Bailey did a lot of straight down descenders. Maybe you can see on this piece, if I show it closer. In yours here, so yours sincerely, this Y just has a straight descender that goes straight down, and there's no loop, there's no curve. That was something that he did a lot in his writing. as far as I can tell, just from looking at these two pieces. I haven't looked at a ton of his work, but yeah. Micah asked, what are your thoughts about correct paper angle? There is some variability in what different manuals teach you to do, and it's been bugging me. I mean, it seems like most of the manuals tell you that they want the slant of your paper to be, around 52 degrees, and they want the slant to be coming directly towards your body. I know there's some of the books talk about how, depending on the size of the length of your arm and hand, you might need to angle it more one way or the other. But I'm going to write some guidelines or some slant lines on here right now. And I'll just show you how I get set up, because that's one thing I've been thinking about as far as mechanics go, which is what we want to get into, or I wanted to get into when I thought about doing this live stream. So I'm just going to use my T-square here and do some quick lines. Alright, so I have my slant lines down. Now what I do, first you gotta be sitting right and make sure you're square to the table. That's absolutely critical. If you have the room. If you have a small desk and you're in a certain situation, you might want to turn to your left, assuming you're right-handed, and write on more of an angle. But assuming you have enough room to write square on the table, you want to be sitting square, straight forward. Hopefully we can see this. And then you just want to have these slant lines coming right towards your body. So if you make your slant lines and figure out what the degree of your script is, and get it coming towards your body. And the reason you want it to come towards your body is it's kind of like a home base for your arm, just to pull down. It's kind of just it's an easy motion. Your arm can just pull back, and it just kind of rocks on the muscle of your forearm, and you can pull straight down. So yeah, I've been experimenting with moving it a little bit, which I suggest you do. There's some letters that are easier. There's some letters that you tend to write more slanted, especially ascenders and descenders. So your L's or your G's. So sometimes I kind of feel like it's cheating, but I want the best results possible. I'll tilt the paper more to the right so I can write more upright when I'm doing an L. Because if I do it on slant, it tends to be flat. So you can see how flat this one is, and that one's more upright on slant. Except you can't really see my paper because it's a little blown out. Let me just fix that if I can. Why did I just open that? Let's just get this fixed. Alright, let me just move to a pen too, because then you'll definitely be able to see it. Alright. I'll use my thick pen too. Alright, so I've been thinking about mechanics a lot. It's actually because of email from my friend Franciscus. I don't know if he gets on YouTube or not, but I definitely want to shout him out in case he does see this. Because I really don't know where he's at with penmanship and how much he practices and all that. I know he thinks very deeply about it, about movement and how everything works. And he sends me emails, kind of just like, here's what I've been thinking about, and it's always insightful stuff. He's just been talking a lot about the different parts of the motion arm, of your body that drive the motion of the writing. Got me thinking a ton about, those different parts and how they come into play for different forms. So the parts, I think the main, there's kind of three main parts to what's called like the writing engine. And I would definitely check out Michael Gebhardt's blog, inpursuitofpenmanship.com. I'll link to it in the description. He has a blog post, I forget the title of it. It has the word writing engine in the title. So definitely check that out. He goes into this in depth and it's super helpful. So the writing engine, there's kind of three parts to it. You have your upper arm. The upper arm propels the movement up and down. You have the elbow hinge, so you can go like this. Now it's still the muscles in the upper arm that are driving that, but it's the elbow, it's the hinge of the elbow that is allowing you to go from left to right. And then you have the fingers, which are super subtle. Obviously, if you're just getting into business penmanship, you don't really want to get into finger movement, but they're absolutely essential, and it comes into play and is critical when you get to a certain point. So once you've gotten past the point of wanting to use your fingers to write and you're using your arm primarily, then you can start thinking about how can I use my fingers to create a cleaner script. Get my top here. So yeah, I was thinking about these different elements, the upper arm, the elbow hinge, and the fingers, and how they come into play in different forms. So I was thinking about the most basic letter, and it kind of made me realize why it's such a basic letter and why it's a great place to start, which is the letter I. So the letter I has an entry stroke, comes down, and then exits. And the reason this letter might be the easiest letter is because it's very compartmentalized. You have an entry stroke that goes to a point, and you basically stop. And the entry stroke, if you notice when you do it, it's kind of like equal parts elbow hinge and equal parts upper arm going upwards. So it's kind of a very natural movement. It doesn't require it gets more difficult when you need to use your upper arm, but you need to just provide the subtlest little bit of elbow hinge or fingers to augment the motion. That's when it gets complicated. But with this motion, it's just a simple just elbow hinge that kind of just slowly transitions into a pure upper arm push motion. Super simple. And then the second part of the letter is the downstroke, which is also super simple because it's pure upper arm. So you got the elbow hinge and upper arm going up, then you have pure upper arm coming down, and then when you get to the exit, it's the most difficult part of the letter, the part of the letter that everybody struggles with the most, which is the exit. And obviously it's the most difficult thing because unlike the top, it doesn't come to a complete stop. There's a very subtle and sharp angle curve. So you need the transition from that upper arm movement, which is a kind of a blunt movement, to a very sharp and angled curve. So you transition from upper arm to then elbow hinge to go out, and then back to upper arm. More complex. Definitely more complex than any other part of that letter. And that's why it's more difficult than any other part of that letter. So that just kind of breaks it down into these, 1, 2, 3 parts, and breaks down the different movements that are required to make that form. Hope everybody's following along here. This is still kind of fresh thoughts in my head, so not super crystal clear, but I think it's important. I think it's important to understand what kind of movements are required, and then all right, if I'm having problems, let's say I'm having problems with the exit, like most people do, and I even do it sometimes, I know I need to train what I need to train is this transition from upper arm movement and then to the elbow hinge, like making that transition from those two different movements and subtly, that continuous transition from kind of pure upper arm pulling to then an elbow hinge swinging out to the right, like that transition, while at the same time slowing your pen down to make that sharp turn. Like that's a complicated motion, and now that I like understand exactly what's going on, I can figure out like, all right, what can I do to actually train the muscles in my arm to make that motion, All right, Andre has a question. Actually, the entry exit stroke is hard for me as left-hander. It gets distorted, but the sharpest point at the bottom, I find some. As a left-hander, there might be, so there probably is a difference here. Yeah, if you're using muscular movement, that would make a difference, as Diego says. Because like another thing that I found difficult for a right-hander is to go out this way. Now you never really have to do this in penmanship, but making this movement this way, or even just going like straight up, that can be a little difficult. And I've actually been practicing this a little bit. There's all these different angles and directions that your pen can go, and some directions are just more difficult for the arm to do. They're just not as natural. And you need to obviously figure out what those unnatural directions and motions are and figure out how to train so that your arm can do them just as easily, as like this entry stroke, which is easy for most right-handers. So yeah, that's the I. I think the E is a great letter to look at as well, because it's so similar to the I. But obviously it's so much harder, and I was thinking like, why is it so much harder? And obviously because it adds this complicating factor with this loop at the top. And the loop is so hard because unlike the I, it doesn't come to this distinct, discrete stopping point. It has this subtle change of direction, and it's even more complicated change of direction than the exit stroke is. So it has this elbow hinge, and then the elbow hinge kind of goes into a finger motion to get around that curve at the top, and then you have to combine kind of an elbow hinge and a upper arm pull down to do the back side of the letter, and then you have your same exit stroke, which we know is also difficult for most people. So you can just see how just a different subtle change, like instead of having that discrete stopping point at the top, you have this loop at the top, and it just complicates things so much more. So I think most people find the E to be a much harder letter than the I, and I think this is why. It just adds these more complicated movements, these subtle, continuous changes from different parts of the writing engine. I think that's the best way to put it. When you have a discrete stopping point that separates the different parts of the writing engine, like you do in the I, like in the entry and the downstroke, like that part is easy. But when you have to subtly change from one part of the writing engine to another, that's when it gets difficult. And I think, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this information going forward, but I think trying to train my arm to gracefully make those transitions and smoothly make those transitions, like that's might be something that that I'm focusing on going forward. Just check the chat here. Yeah, left-handers were never supposed to write cursive. I mean, that's when cursive was invented. I mean, I don't know of any left-handed penman from the golden era of penmanship. I think it was pretty much like, I'm sure there was very good left-handers from that time. I just don't know of any that actually made it into prominence in the business, because I think it was just so frowned upon as like, no, you have to write right-handed. And obviously we've had people since then that are amazing penmen. John DeCalabas is the one that comes first to mind. If you haven't seen his videos on YouTube and you're left-handed, you definitely should. I mean, if you're any-handed, you should check him out. He's one of the... I was thinking about this. He might be one of the only guys that's like over the age of 50 that actually does like really beautiful whole arm movement writing. I mean, there must be some guys out there that I don't know of because they're not on Instagram and they don't go to conferences and things like that. But every guy that I know that's doing whole arm writing, first of all, they're almost exclusively guys for whatever reason, with the exception of with some women in China that we know of that do absolutely beautiful whole arm movement writing. Everybody seems to be younger guys. Like, I think 35 might be the oldest guy I know that does whole arm movement writing. But John DeCalabas does it, and I think he's in his 60s, maybe 70s. I don't want to age him, but he's an older guy, and he does absolutely beautiful stuff. He's left-handed. Definitely check him out. FB Courtney wrote with both hands. He did. I haven't seen a lot of his pen work. I know he did a lot of chalkboard stuff with left hands, and he would do a lot of stuff like simultaneously writing on the chalkboard. I haven't seen... Diego, if you have any specimens of his left-handed penmanship, I would love to see that, because he probably did some really cool designs. Yeah, let me write John's name. Oh, thanks, Diego. You got it. There's like a few YouTube videos, 1 to 3, I'm not really sure how many, where he writes. He's talking in one, and he does some different styles, but he just has this beautiful movement, ornamental stuff. He can do Madaras. He's really good Madaras script, or shaded Spencerian. Absolutely beautiful stuff. So... anyway, that was pretty much all I had to talk about. I'm going to keep thinking about the whole mechanics thing, and, you know, some exercises and things that I can do to kind of improve it. So my whole thing about... yeah, Shin Long is great. I have her book right here. Somewhere in here. I don't know, it's gone. She just released a book about flourishing and offhand flourishing kind of stuff, which she does amazing stuff at that. Yeah, she hasn't been on Instagram lately. Well, I don't know about YouTube, but she's one of those writers. I wouldn't say she's a pure muscular movement writer, but she does have a lot of movement in her writing, and it's really beautiful stuff. Super creative. She's an artist for sure. The two women I'm thinking of, as far as business penmanship goes, are on Instagram. You want to look up BP Olivia, who's still active, and then the other one is Wish Older, like Wish, and then like the word older. Those are... she hasn't been writing in a while, or hasn't been posting, but they're both absolutely amazing, super dedicated to business. And they do, I mean, they're both artists too. They can create like engrossing script and stuff that's just beautiful. Yeah, Diego has a YouTube channel. Go to his channel. He actually knows how to use YouTube, unlike me. Another thing I've been thinking about lately is just posture and tension. when I write, sometimes I'll get into these. Maybe you've seen me on the stream. I'll like get my head cocked to the left over here, my back. I get my right shoulder like cocked up to the right, and I get all this like tension in my right and my back, and it's not good. I want to really cut that out. She is too much. Yeah, you need to be. If you're left-handed, you gotta follow Diego. Diego's putting out a ton of content right now. Live streams almost every damn day, which is awesome. Diego's a real artist, so he has a body of work. I just write. I really want to figure out how this stuff works, though. I mean, I was looking at that J.J. Bailey stuff, and the quality is just, it's so far and above. What, frankly, there's so many people doing amazing work, but like, I don't see anybody that's really reaching what these guys were in the past. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out like why that is. Why is that back then that these guys were creating this work that was absolutely amazing? Now, granted, we're not seeing their whole body of work. We're seeing probably the best of their best. But the best of their best, the best of the best today that I'm seeing doesn't really compare to the best of the best then. So it's like, what did they know that we didn't know? One explanation would be that there was just so many people doing penmanship then. Like, everybody was learning it, so it was very easy to pick out. It's kind of like if you have a nation of soccer players and every kid plays soccer, you're probably going to have a better soccer team than a nation where, 10% of the kids play soccer, which is kind of the situation that we have now. Everybody was learning penmanship, learning to write in cursive, learning muscular movement at a very young age in 1920. And today, maybe you have one kid under the age of 10 right now that is learning muscular movement. Maybe you don't even have that. And maybe you have, 50 or 100 people of any age that are seriously studying muscular movement on a daily basis. So we definitely don't have the numbers that they had back then. But I feel like if it's a skill that can be learned, like, what is there something we're missing about how they did it, and that just didn't translate? It didn't make it in the books, or the books can't communicate it to us. So I just wonder if there's something to figure out here, a secret. I don't want to go on a search for a holy grail because you kind of know how that ends, but I feel like there's something to be figured out here that nobody has really figured out. There's people that are super close, maybe if there's some guys that are really good. I don't want to that can create work that could stand next to the best of the best. But yeah, Diego said JJ's work, he might be looking at 20, 30 years of practice. Yeah. I forget when he was born. I think he was born in the 1800s, so he was at least 30 years old probably when he did that milestone thing, and he probably had been writing since he was 5. Well, when do you start writing? 6, 7, 8. So yeah, he probably at least had 20 years under his belt at that point. And I'm not looking for like I'm not like trying to trace a secret. Because it just doesn't feel right. It just feels like like you're delusional. Like when I find this secret, then I'll write good. You obviously need to put the time in. Yeah, look at Rate. Rate's amazing. He's on Instagram. And he's, the speed that he does things at is just amazing. And the accuracy of his forms at that speed. The other thing I've been thinking about, yeah, I wish Rate would write a page at work too. Man, I would love to see him do that, and I just wonder why he doesn't. I don't know. Everybody does their art for whatever reason they do it, and I don't really want to judge it. I know if he put out a page of anything, it would be amazing. I don't know. People are going to do what they do. There's a lot of amazing penmen living today that write every day, and they don't put out a lot of work. So, and for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure they're creating work, whether it's just practice or things for themselves or personal things for friends. But just as far as posting on Instagram, I think there's some perfectionists, especially in this business penmanship, ornamental penmanship world. So, yeah. It does take time. Dude, I'll put up $100 for Rate. PayPal. If he wants to do a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of whatever. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do business penmanship left-handed. I don't know anybody doing it, but and I don't know of any resources specific to left-handers besides Diego, what Diego's done. So definitely talk to him. $10 to write a book. Dude, that's what it takes to write a book, actually. I heard somebody say that. It's like, yeah, it took me 2 years to write the book, but really it was like the last 10 years of research and study. So, that's the thing. That's what sucks about business penmanship is that so few people are doing it. There's not a whole lot of economic incentive to create books and things like that. like, you know, there would be something on left-handed if there was a bunch of left-handed people, you know, doing it. If anybody has any questions or anything, or wants to see me do something, I'll do my best. It is like esoteric knowledge. It's like, that's definitely what drew me to it. Like, just knowing that not a whole lot of people are interested in or like know about how this stuff was done. It's like, oh, this is kind of like a little piece of history in an art form. I have not seen that. I'm just gonna hang out and write. I got nothing else really to say. But I'll keep my eye on the chat if anybody has any questions. I highly doubt they're teaching any kind of real movement. I just can't imagine, like, think about teaching, like, even when I was in grade school, like, teaching kids how to do movement writing, like, nobody would have been, just like, I can't even, like, parents would not even they wouldn't even let you try to teach that to your kids because it's just too difficult at too young of an age for, like, this generation. just shows you like how different like people are. People kind of stay the same, but like definitely like have changed. Do I ever do numeral practice? I don't anymore. Kind of on the list of things that I should do, but just don't get around to. Just because it's so rare that I want to write a numeral like in a piece of artwork, and I'm pretty comfortable with them for other purposes. So I would definitely practice them and get them to a point where you feel like they're good. I'll do some numerals in a second here. Finish this alphabet. Whoops. What am I doing? Not thinking. Yeah, Xander Blozer's, I mean, that's probably still the most popular one in America. One of them. So, but they don't teach the movement stuff anymore. Whoops, that's a F. All right. I was taught Danielian. That was popular in Michigan in the 90s. Definitely work on your numbers, though. Whoops. Messed up the 0. The hardest thing about numbers is spacing and hitting the baseline, because each one is kind of different. A different kind of movement. So really just like practicing writing like oops, shit. Like dollar signs and I'm familiar with the old style numerals, but I don't really know all the rules for them. you know, they kind of bounce up and down, which I think makes them easier to differentiate between each other, so that like mistakes weren't. I think that was the whole thing with those old styles. Like, you know, if you used that style, you would it'd be a lot easier to read what the numbers, and less likely to make a mistake reading the numbers. Like I know like a 9 would be below the line, and a 6 would be way high. I think 4s were down there. I don't know. 7s I think went below the line. I don't see it as very practical. If you can do it and pull it off, it looks cool, but it's pretty hard to pull off. Odds ascend, evens ascend. Yeah, I have no interest in learning Chinese or Japanese. That's got to be so hard. Odds descend, evens ascend, except 0 and 1, maybe 2, which were hexi, yeah. Well, I'm getting tired. I need to go to bed. All right. Oh, I gotta go. That's enough. Thanks for hanging out. I need to write some letters before I go to bed. If anybody wants to write me a letter, let me know. Leave a comment. I should just put my P.O. box on here. Yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Any comments, anything you think of, just come back and leave a comment. Hey, Benny. Buonanotte. You got it, Micah. You guys know how to get in touch with me. Comments on the videos. I see them all, and I appreciate them. Thanks, guys. See ya.